Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking all about this week's episode of the Book of Boba Fett, plus a few other trailers and stuff that have recently broken. But before we go into any of that, a quick bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do subscribe either on the audio platforms or on the video platforms as well. You can also go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. You can find us and do bits and pieces all over there. And a big thank you and support to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel members for your support, especially at the Go tier and above, which include Dana, Ricky Wright, we've got Baba, we've got Dave, Diona, Adam, Mohamed, we've got Ben, Raphael, My VCR Still Works, Bina, Joshua, Dawn, Martin, Jeremy, and Sarah. And then a huge thank you also to Andrew, Elliot, Jacob, Caleb, Kevin, Red Marsman, Era G, Andrew, Cody, Darren, and Lauren. And also a huge thank you to Sarah again for your support. With all of that, there it helps keep all the things that we have to pay for in terms of hosting and host bits and pieces. It really makes a big deal, and they also get to contribute with the weekly Q&A. So let's jump into it. So not a huge amount of news this week, and we're recording a few days earlier than normal, and so therefore there's not been a huge amount of news. We've had a couple of trailers. First off, we had a trailer for Ice Age, the Buck Wild Adventures, which is coming out on January the 28th in the US, Canada, Latin America, and some Asian countries, where Australia, New Zealand, and Europe are getting it in March for some bizarre reason. Did you happen to see this trailer?
I did watch this trailer. Sorry, my microphone was on. Yes, I did watch this trailer. I think I've said in the past, Ice Age was never really something I got super excited about. I don't dislike the series, but I never found it funny either. I mean, Simon Pegg is the main voice in this, so that should be, a plus for it. But the trailer really didn't do too much for me. That said, I think if you are a longtime fan of the Ice Age, there is the typical humor in it for that.
I mean, I enjoyed the first couple of movies. I think I've seen a few of them at the cinema even. The trailer didn't really do anything for me. I was a bit along the lines of going, couldn't quite tell where the clips of the old movies ended and where the new one began a little bit, because it was like, okay. Obviously, Simon Pegg's great. I mean, I love him in pretty much everything he was doing. I was watching At World's End last night on TV before I went to bed. The animation looks a little ropey. I think the trouble is now, especially with it being part of the Disney, is your expectations are a little bit higher than it was. I know a lot of people are fans of Blue Sky Studios, but this does not look in the same sort of league as like Disney and Pixar. But it's going to be a fun, straight streaming movie. I know I'm probably going to like bits of it. I'm looking forward to seeing it, but it's not hugely high on my list of things to watch.
I think it'll be a good addition at the very least. It's better than most of the quality of what you expect for a Disney Plus release, not counting Pixar, obviously. But getting it on there, it's a well-known brand. I think people will enjoy it. I'll definitely check it out, despite my kind of ambivalence towards it. I definitely do not hold the animation quality against it. It's understood. It's not Pixar. It's not the Disney main studio.
Yeah.
That said, I do think people will hold it against it to a certain extent, because all you're going to see is the Disney name. They're not really going to be putting Blue Skies as the big headlight name.
Well, it's the fact. I mean, it's come out on the Walt Disney Studios feed. It all came out through that. So it's definitely it should be a lot of fun. But again, it's the trouble is, again, we're at this point now. These are like the lower tier movies, a bit like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, that kind of lower level ones. Yesterday, we also had a trailer for Pam and Tommy, which is going to be coming on February the 2nd. It'll be coming to Hulu in the United States, and then internationally, it will be on Star Plus in Latin America, and then on Disney Plus around the world. The trailer, I'm going to be honest, this just looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know, is this just I think it's so different to anything else. I mean, Disney have even been like, they put like 18 certificate on the logo, on the posters. It was even on like Lorraine this morning. I was watching breakfast television, and they were like talking about it, and it's definitely high up on. I think this one's really going to capture a lot of people's attention. It's very interesting to see the comments and stuff regarding this one. but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This one could be a great one. I'm loving the fact that we're going to get 3 episodes to begin with, and then new episodes dropping each week, because it's a limited series. So I think it's like 8 episodes, and that's it. But what did you think of it?
Yeah, this looks bonkers. Looks absolutely crazy. It definitely is not a series that you're like, oh yeah, that's a Disney Plus show. That is, and obviously in America it won't be. But yeah, this whole thing, it's a really strange subject. I, Tonya was a really good movie, so I'm expecting it to be that same kind of irreverent, stupid humor of just weirdness going on. Sebastian Stan looks great in there.
They look great in it, don't they? I mean, they really do just look like they've just like, I don't know how. I mean, like Lily James has really gone through a massive change from, like when she was in Cinderella to this. It's just
And then Seth looks like he's lost a lot of weight. Good on him. He looks really good in this. And then Nick Offerman. You normally don't see him in roles like this. He's normally kind of like that anti-government, hard-working handyman, and this is like the complete opposite. This is just like a skeezy, gross-looking guy. I'm like, that's Nick Offerman? Wow.
Yeah, and it's also that whole thing as well of like being like a different stage of the internet. I mean, it is scary when I sometimes think that one of my main email addresses is like nearly like 25 years old. It's just like it's been around a while, but obviously it's gone through changes, and the stuff that was happening back then are very different to now. And I think the thing is, you've got obviously the story is, there's a whole host of issues with that one, but I think just the whole concept of it, the trailer just makes it look like just an interesting story, just that needs to be told, kind of thing.
It's going to be an odd one. It's going to be a tough one to talk about for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Obviously this isn't something to just kind of drop your kids off in front of, but I think especially people in our age range are going to be really entertained by this.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a interesting thing, and it's also kind of interesting as well. This past weekend we had the trailer on New Year's Day broke, where it was a little clip of the new Cardassian series, which is coming to Hulu and on Disney Plus internationally. And this one, it's been on our Facebook group, and I'm going to be honest, this has been probably one of the most hottestly the comments about the Cardassian series that's coming. Literally, you'd post something about it, and you'd be looking at 1,000 comments deep. Easily. The amount of time, just every time it's mentioned, of just like this massive just Marmite effect of love it or hate it. And obviously with it being on Disney Plus internationally, it then kind of brings up this whole thing of like, it can't be on Disney Plus, and yes it can, and no it can't. Then things like, and Pam and Tommy has done the exact same thing of it. It's pushing those boundaries. This and the Kardashians have really been pushing it of, internationally, of how different Disney Plus has become, and kind of the interest of like seeing it from the Americans' point of view, going, well, you can't have that. And it's like, yeah, we do. It is what we have here. But yeah, it's just interesting seeing like that reaction. When we think about some of the stories we had like in year one, where like they blur it out like the bum from Splash, or they edit, like Hamilton had one F word in, and like it's like here we are in year, like near just gone into year 3 now internationally. It's just a completely different thing, completely. And and like I said, it's great for us because we have so much more to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about. It's interesting though, because this one goes beyond just should Disney Plus have mature content on it or not, and obviously it's going to be different depending on where that is. The actual specific topic of this show that's coming up, there's a huge polarizing divide between how Americans view it and how most of Europe views this kind of thing. Because Europe, a lot of it's just like, they're naked, no big deal. Obviously, the moving past the naked part doesn't change too much, but like you have a much more blasé attitude towards it. It's human body. There's a thing. Whereas in America, no.
Well, it's not even just in Europe. There's a big difference even just between like I'd say the northern countries to like the southern. Generally, the hotter it is, the more generally like Italians and Spanish have a different view than like English and stuff. It is going to be a very interesting series. It's just. I literally just recorded today's Disney Plus news, and one of the things I said was, Like This Is Us, it's just dropped onto Disney Plus. The first 5 seasons are available as of Thursday, and the first episode of season 6. And like in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to get like Walking Dead on Monday. Then we're going to get like Pam and Tommy on Wednesdays, and then we're getting This Is Us on. You know, we're really seeing a real shift over to like different releases, and it's great. I mean, it just makes so much more entertainment, you know, in terms of shows that we're watching.
Honestly, that actually reminded me a little bit. Was watching, I can't remember which one of the Scandinavian countries had a couple shows on Netflix. Sweden, Norway, one of them, and my mom was watching it, and she was telling me, I'm just like, yeah, it's a really great show, but every once in a while they're just naked and it's Norway, it's Sweden, it's dark like 9 months out of the year. There's literally nothing to do up there.
It's like daylight.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be interesting. Also this past week, had it officially confirmed that the Sony movies, Marvel movie Morbius has been pushed back until the 1st of April. A couple of reasons. I think primarily Spider-Man's still doing so well at the box office, they don't want to take away from it. But primarily it's because of the variant right now, which is just causing chaos. I mean, we're literally having all kinds of stuff going on. Events are being cancelled. Literally, like Hong Kong Disney literally closed down like today for 2 weeks. Just it's all chaos, and so I think they've just decided that, you know what, we're just going to push back a few months. You know, we've already delayed it 9 times or whatever how many times it is. A couple more months isn't really going to make a lot of difference. So it does mean that I don't think that's a bad thing as well. It's kind of going to give us, you know, if we don't get something drop in February, which could do by the time this one goes out, but it'd be good to actually have a few months without it at Marvel. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but I think that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really count Morbius as a Marvel movie to begin with anyway. It is a Marvel property, but it's part of the Sony Spider-Verse with like Venom and so on. I don't know. It depends if they're going to take any story changes to it. I presume they're just going to shelve it, leave it alone, and bring it back out whenever they're going to release it. Yeah. But honestly, I mean, the trailers for this were completely uninteresting. So, I don't know. You can't judge a movie by the trailers, but you can definitely decide whether it's worth your time or not to try it. I'm kind of like, no. But of course, I said the same thing about Venom, and while I found that to be an accurate assessment for myself, I know that a lot of people really did like the Venom movies.
Yeah, I've been waiting for Venom to drop down in price. I don't know if it has or not. It might be something I might watch this weekend. Again, with Morbius is going to come under a new contract with Sony. So will we go into either Hulu or Disney Plus in its pay to window? So what that means is it'll get released in cinemas, then it will get released on video on demand and all the rest of it, physical discs, etc. Then it will go to Netflix for pay 1 for 18 months before then Disney can decide where they want to put it. And let's be honest, where Disney Plus is in the US in 2 years' time, I wouldn't like, it could be on there or it might be still separate. Who knows? But just keep that aware. Internationally, currently there are no deals in place to keep Morbius on Disney Plus. Right. Okay, so we're going to shift now over to our main topic of today, which is the Book of Boba Fett. So we got a second episode dropped on Wednesday, just under an hour long. Massive improvement on the first episode. I really enjoyed this one. It was still a bit ploddy. The guy that plays Boba Fett is not, he's not a young spring chicken, so therefore they've adapted his style, I think, to the character a little bit more. But I just thought this was great. It was almost like a story of two. There was 2 stories going on. We had the currents, and then we had the flashback. But what did you think of the episode?
So, like you, I think it was a big improvement over the first episode. I think the extra runtime gave it a chance to breathe, and there was actual movement on the plots. That said, there are 2 stories going on here. You've got the consolidating power, trying to prove that he's powerful in the current timeline, and then this Tusken Raider story in the past. And there is a very distinct change between the 2. And I have to admit, when the Tusken storyline kicked in this week, I was like, my interest level just kept dropping.
See, I like the fact that once we got into the flashback, we just stayed in the flashback.
Yes,
I preferred that. But then you kind of look at it and go, should they have just gone in on, like last week, have just done the Tusken Raider bit and then like gone, because it almost feels like we didn't need to. It's like we could have just had one episode on one story and one episode on another, rather than the flashback, because it didn't really make any difference in episode 2. Because once we were back in the flashback, that was it.
Yeah. Now, I did appreciate them just kind of not going back and forth, because that kind of gets jarring after a while. But at the same time, I'm still not sold on the Tuscan story, so I'm not really invested in it. I do at least feel now, having seen this episode, that they are going somewhere with it, beyond just the Tuscans will show up in the current timeline to save things in like episode 6 or whatever. But they have a point to it. I just don't know if I'm interested in the point yet.
Yeah, well, it's going to be like thing of like, he's obviously either going to have them as a backup to help him with something, or he picked a fight with them and they kicked him out, or I don't know. There's obviously something that's going to play into the current time zone. That's my only guess on that one.
I'm hoping it's not simply he found Fennec at the end of that Mandalorian episode and decided it was time to go get his armor. There should be some inciting incident of some sort. I do think it is very likely that the Tuscans will show up in the current timeline at the end to help with the final fight. I just want it to be more than that. I want there to be an actual payoff to this storyline that is not just the kid being the new clan leader and helping to save Boba. They need more than that.
Because it's hard as well to tell how long's taking place between it. Because I mean, there was only 6 or 5 years maybe between the Mandalorian and Return of the Jedi, something like that. It wasn't a huge amount of time, was it?
Yeah, I don't think they ever clearly stated how much time was between them, but yeah, it's somewhere in that range.
Yeah, so it's kind of a bit of an odd one, but I definitely enjoyed this episode. The whole kind of gritty, down to earth, like Tatooine, of just being just sandy and just I like the look of it. I'm like, it just feels odd with no concept of the Empire, no kind of interconnection at all or overtone of anything to do with that. Still kind of feels a bit odd. It
does. It is Tatooine, though. It's understood it's under Hutt control, at least through most of the movies. And sure, they had that presence during A New Hope, but that seemed to be only because they came down from the Star Destroyer that Vader was on. And otherwise, the Empire is never here. They just kind of leave it alone, which kind of makes sense with this. Plus, having those 2 new Hutts show up in this episode.
Yeah.
I think that was, for me, the turning point where I went from, okay, this is entertaining, to, okay, now you've got a story going here.
Well, that's the thing, is the whole thing of just like the ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And you can just, and everyone's like, okay, something's happening. And then they turn up. And I mean, I obviously just, 2 Hutts, like, okay, this is new. This is different. And the thing of being on the plinth, because they made a reference to obviously last week of like that's how they think of a leader. That's what they're expecting, not just some guy walking in a helmet kind of thing. And I love the whole stuff with these twins, because like line on there, do not kill these off. These could be great characters for years to come. It was that kind of feeling. This is a good couple of characters.
If this was a Marvel show, I would say that meant they were certainly going to die by the end of this, because Marvel does not keep their villains around for some reason. But at Star Wars, I would like to see them be like the kingpin of Star Wars for a couple of years, at least in the television show or the Disney Plus shows.
And I also like the dynamic of 2, because it kind of makes it different to Jabba. It kind of gives them a different, because the Jabba's cousin that was in the Rebels cartoon I found really annoying. So these 2 just seemed a little bit more like normal.
They feel more intimidating. Like even in the Clone Wars, even in Rebels, when we saw the Hutts, they weren't intimidating the way Jabba was in Return of the Jedi. And these 2, you feel like they could kill you just because they want to. They have the whim, especially the sister had that kind of like, they're in control. Everyone does what they want, and if you cross them, you're in a lot of trouble.
And also, they got that Wookiee bounty hunter, which I have found out since watching it, because at the time I went, "Oh God, that looks a really kind of weird character. I want to see what more about him." And then, this is a comic book character. This is a major comic book character that they brought over, which instantly I think is just delighted a load of people that know who he is.
Oh yeah, I loved that moment. It was my first was like, is that the guy from Dr. Afra? Oh my God, it is the guy from Dr. Afra. So it's a great callback, and I hope they actually do something with him. I hope that they have some stories with it, and I also hope they don't kill him off by the end because he is a really interesting character.
Well, you kind of also have that situation of like, this is the perfect. You've introduced a new bounty hunter, a new, like use it. You've got you got all these new movies, you've got all these series. Use it. You want to use that time up. Yeah. So I mean, he just looked badass. That was the thing. I'm just like, okay, yeah, we want to have a fight between them at some point. Yeah, and it's kind of in. I feel as well like with Wookiees, we've never really they just stand around in the background a lot. It's just like, can we see something a little bit more interesting with this one? It's a long way off. I mean, we could barely see him in other episodes, but overall, it was just like it was just a really fun episode.
It was a step up over last week. It was a much better introduction episode, and I think it really laid the ground for what's going to be coming next. Obviously, as I've stated a couple times, I'm much more interested in what's going on in the modern story.
Yeah.
But I think the Tusken story has at least established that they have something they want to do with it. Now, will it end up in a place that is ultimately satisfying? That's too early to tell. There's a difference between watching because I want to see what happens next. I've got to see what happened next, which I think is the modern, and watching because is this going to be worth my time? I can't tell until I get to the end of it, so I'll just stick with it. And that's kind of the Tusken.
But the only thing is, like you said, it doesn't feel like there's anywhere else for the flashback to go anymore. It kind of feels like he's going to be wandering around the desert, and then he's helped Fennec, and then he goes after Cad Bane or all the rest of it, and it's like that feels like the natural. I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's anywhere else for it to go in the meantime.
And that's the main thing. The conflict within the Tuskens was resolved in this episode because they introduced the conflict of this train, this random resource train, and then they resolved it. And they didn't kind of establish what the next step of this is. Now he got the Gaddafi stick, so he can fight, and we know he has that in the Mandalorian episode. But what comes next? Where do we go from here?
I mean, definitely, I think like introducing the pike and the crime syndicates and all the spice and stuff, definitely kind of leans more in on this like underground aspect of of what we've seen in the cartoons, and it opens it all up. Like only literally like this morning, like an article about Korra coming back, and it kind of again leaning in on the darker side of what's going on in the universe. It is fascinating. I think this again is where I do now that feeling of I feel, especially in this era, it does feel like having knowledge of the comics is because he pulls in from stuff from somewhere else so often. It does help, but also at the same time, it's like with was it Black K? Is that the character, the Wookiee?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but Dr. Afra typically refers to him as like Black K or Big K.
Yeah, I definitely like that was the kind of thing of like he is important. I don't know why, but there was something about, and obviously it is, and like we saw it with the Dark Saber when they introduced that, and the Dark Troopers. There's something big because of the way that they're presented, even if you've got prior knowledge of it all. But yeah, again, I'm this second episode really boosted this series up a number of notches for me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and if you are interested in that character, check out the Dr. Afra comic series. They are so far the only ongoing series that has consistently stayed good. Even stuff like the mainline Star Wars title and the Darth Vader books took a massive nosedive when they jumped past the Empire Strikes Back era. They relaunched in that era. The first ones are New Hope or pre-New Hope. This one's Empire Strikes Back. Afra has remained very entertaining all the way through, and that's where this particular character is featured.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this one comes in. But yeah, so we still got 5 more episodes to go, so we've got quite a way to go on this one moving forward. Anything else you've been watching on Disney Plus lately?
Not on Disney Plus. I checked out The Matrix Resurrection, whatever. Yeah, that one, and it was a movie. It certainly was a movie.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see kind of like obviously like at the end of the year, like everyone's been kind of going around and like looking at the box office numbers and what's done well and what isn't, and like HBO seems to have really kind of had that whole thing with Warner Brothers of them shifting everything onto HBO Max, really hit so many of their movies. And like The Matrix, if you'd said to, I mean, it still feels really weird if you'd said to me like 15 years ago or something like that, oh yeah, it's gonna be a big Matrix movie come back. It's like, well, that was like one of the biggest franchises during that era, and it came back like a wet flannel and just didn't do anything. I think as Spider-Man just felt like it just took all the hype away.
So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, something interesting about the Matrix Resurrections, I'm going to make one of the weirdest comparisons I've ever done. After we reviewed Home Alone, I was kind of like, am I just biased against the movie? Am I being too harsh on it? And then I watched Matrix Resurrection, and like the entire first quarter of the movie is them just doing like a meta, this is a reboot. The Matrix was written by Neo, and it's a video game. And I'm just sitting there for the first quarter going, this is the stupidest nonsense I have watched in a Matrix movie ever. And part of it was like, oh yeah, I didn't just dislike the Home Alone movie because it made that stupid joke. No. I actually do hate when movies make this joke.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of an odd one. I think moving forward, I think because Warner Brothers have now said they're going with that 45-day release. They've already come out and said like Batman, like day 46, it'll be on HBO Max. Still kind of trying to boost up HBO Max, whereas Disney have still very much like, no, we're playing every title as and when we need it. A lot less flex. Or Disney are being really flexible. They don't want to tie themselves up into anything right now.
Yeah, and I think as much as I liked the 30-day window, that was very nice for people who did not want to go back to the theaters. It probably was a little too quick. It really sapped any energy out of the second week and on, because I didn't see it the week after it came out. Yeah, I'll just wait until it's on Disney Plus. It's only
I think
3 weeks out.
I think Encanto pulled in about 200 million, so it did all right. I mean, for it probably pulled in enough to at least cover the costs of it all. But I'm kind of well, 30 days is the trouble as well. We kind of got to get us all used to this concept, because 30 days, everyone's like, well, what if it's coming? A few friends are like, well, why is it coming so early? Is it rubbish? It's like, no, you need to get out of this habit. This is it. It's coming early because it's good. It's like, and this whole thing of 45 days. And like it is with Disney, it's a number that they can use as and what they need to, rather than a dedicated like bang on day. Because like Antlers, for example, hasn't arrived here in the UK, but it's been out in Australia. French Dispatch, they released on like home video, but it's not on Disney Plus yet. I still feel like we're in the test zone of all these movies. I mean, I'm just trying to think. We've not got a huge amount of movies coming up over the next coming months ahead. I think we've got Nightmare Alley comes out in a few weeks for us here in the UK. It's a little bit later than it's already out in the US. And then you got like the Death of the Nile. And I think that's it. Then till Turning Red. There's literally like a couple of movies. And I'm looking at like what's going on now with like the variant, and like all the cinemas in Canada closed down this week. It's just like, yeah, they've probably actually done themselves a favor by just like clearing out, because I still wouldn't be at all surprised if Turning Red does either a 30-day or goes like day and date as an experiment.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Again, it is a Pixar film, and there are probably some other factors in play there as well. That remind me, thank you for mentioning Encanto. I did watch that too, not this past week, but the week before. I never got a chance to talk about it, so I'll just say it's really, really good, guys. You should watch it. Yeah,
we watched it on Christmas Eve when it dropped. My wife hadn't seen it, because I went up to London and watched it before, a couple of weeks before it came out, because I had the interviews like with the director and a few people. And I loved it, and that kind of thing of watching it again on Christmas Day, it was great. I just thought it was really good in terms of how they did it, and the music and the excitement in the Facebook group about this movie. Every day, people go, "It's great." What about Bruno? And like for loving them, and then you got other people going, "No, it's not got much of a story." It's like there's a real kind of sense of this one of like there's a lot of people that love it, and there's a couple of people who don't quite get it. But I mean, the music, the colors, and the story, I mean, I think it's not got maybe the strongest of stories, but I still think it's such a great movie.
Yeah, the actual plot itself is acceptable. It's mostly just a framework for them to have fun with the characters, but they are such really fun and energetic and colorful characters in so many different ways. It's just fun to watch them in their antics. But I will agree, the plot is a little thin.
Yes, but I mean, I don't know. It's, for me, it's that kind of thing. I don't know if I don't think it's going to win Best Picture. I'm thinking like out of like Disney's releases last year of like Luca, Raya, and Encanto. I think the music of Encanto is the best. Luca was a good overall one, but Raya again was just looked better and probably had a better story. Very, very different movies last year.
And that makes it very hard to rank them. And obviously, we did not rank them in our 2021. I would put Luca at the top of the three, but I would agree Encanto had the best music. Well, the other two didn't really have music, so that makes it easy.
Well, Ryan definitely didn't, and Luca, I don't think Luca didn't either. But again, it's just great to have all these different bits and pieces to watch. Like I say, we got lots of ones. I binged for a load of Mixed Dish season 1. Season 2 is dropping in the UK in a couple of weeks. So I'll be honest, I did do an entire binge of all 10 episodes of season 4 of Cobra Kai. I just kind of. Sorry.
I still haven't seen any of that.
No, I don't know why. I did say at the end of season 3, like, I don't know why. It's like, but I ended up starting it, and that was it. And yes, like, then suddenly I was, oh yeah, no, I have just watched like 6-7 hours. There's been a lot of television on. There's been a lot of great shows coming on. So I've not watched as much Disney Plus as I would normally have watched because, well, the BBC have just been throwing out specials and drama series like some, and again, it's just. We got some good ones coming up. Big Sky, new episodes are starting to drop. I'm not sure on if I'll keep going with the Wonder Years or not. I mean, I watched the first 3 episodes, but new episodes are dropping weekly now, and I'm like, I might watch it. It didn't kind of bite me the same way.
I mean, I'm not really a sitcom fan, so it's not really been on my radar. That's it. I think we do have Eternals dropping this coming week.
Yes, so Eternals is on Wednesday, so we'll talk through that one next week along with Boba Fett. I think that's the main big release for that week because we've got I think the week after is The World According to Jeff Goldblum, and then the week after that is I think we've got Hitmonkey coming in at the end.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's coming in pretty soon, at least for you guys. We've had it on Hulu since last year. But we'll talk about it when it hits Disney Plus in Europe.
It's one of the things I'm really liking about the fact that with Pam and Tommy that we are actually getting all the episodes at the same time in both places, like we did. Well, no, because even Only Murders in the Building, we were a week behind until the last week. Yeah, I don't know, just a bit of a plane. But nevertheless, so that is, I'm pretty much going to wrap up this week's episode. As we knew it was going to be a little bit shorter because it's a midweek episode. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsonatdisneyplus.com. Next week, we'll be back with episode on normal scheduling. We'll also have a live Q&A on Sunday night. I'll be answering your questions. And on that note, guys, thank you very much. See you guys soon. Later. I'd like to thank all of our Patreon and YouTube channel members for their support. You can become a member from as little as $2 a month and you get access to our weekly Q&A and much more.